Ladies and gentlemen, Tisa tells numbers have crashed. No more lies about Diddy. The people have caught on. Young Miami says Diddy is a good man. But that Cassie tape, I don't think people can unsee that. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into some of this straight game.
Life is like some cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy Delray, Richardson, Platinum Artist, Platinum Songwriter, Straight Game TV. I thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor. Click on the thumbs up button. Also, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And like I always say, if you want to be one of the first people notified when I drop some of this straight game, please do me a favor and click on what appears to be that little bell notification right below this video, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get right into it. First off, ladies and gentlemen, let's deal with the elephant in the room, if you will. Tisa tells, I don't know if you guys remember her, a couple of months back when Diddy was on trial. She was in New York, in the courtroom, as she said. But like I said, a lot of the things that she was reporting were basically mischaracterizations or misrepresentations of what was actually going on as we were broadcasting from what was going on in the courtroom. Ladies and gentlemen, Tisa tells numbers have done a dismal nosedive, ladies and gentlemen. Dismal. People caught on to what was going on, the lies, that just write out slander. As of recent, she just did a video involving Young Miami, talking about her trying to send a letter in support of Diddy. But more importantly, we're going to get into this, and we like to do it like this. Like I say, your boy Delray, Richardson, Platinum Artist, Platinum Songwriter, Straight Game TV, right? The so-called commentator, right, who's been running her mouth about Diddy, lying on people, and now embarrassing herself in front of the whole world, ladies and gentlemen. Tisa tells her numbers are dropping because people, they simply are not stupid. They've caught on to the lies, the clickbait, and the nonsense. Meanwhile, in the actual courtroom during the time of the Diddy trial, she was carrying on, basically saying at one time that, they had locked down the courtroom because of her, which was simply not true. And like I said, she was calling African Americans the N-word, calling them broke ends, and so on and so forth, right? She could say what she want to, but like I said, once again, once people catch on to the lies, it simply doesn't work anymore, right? Young Miami, she's stepping up. Basically, she wrote a character letter in reference to and on the behalf of Diddy. And so, like I said, let's get into what's real. The court documents, the letter, and why folks like Tisa tells are now looking real funny in the light, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, once again, time, time only tells. And like I said, Tisa tells is on the decline. As you see, you don't see her out here anymore. Really, like I said, once again, trying to grab on to different stories, claiming that she has sources that she's never confirmed, and just doing the most, if you will, right? So let's address it, straight off. Tisa built her brand off of sensationalism, ladies and gentlemen, lying about Diddy, exaggerations, exaggerating situations, and hyping up conspiracies over facts. You know what I mean? But like I said, here's the truth. People can only be fooled, y'all, for so long, right? Once the facts come out, once documents hit the internet, like I said, and hit the court or come out and the paperwork, and we start to get to see what's really real and what really actually happened and went on, right? All them fake stories that she came out with have been exposed, and they continue to be exposed, right? Like I said, and the people just simply caught on, ladies and gentlemen. You know, that's why Tisa tells numbers are falling. Integrity matters in this space. If you don't really have integrity, like I said once again, masquerading like you're speaking out for victims when that's not the truth, and the only thing that she was basically trying to do was basically pad her pockets at the expense of others, acting like she's advocating for victims of like Cassie and all of these Jane and all of these other people, which was simply not true. And we see that now, because now it's basically on to the next story, if you will, you know. And like I said, the numbers have been just like doing a nosedive, right? And so integrity matters. And like I said, a lot of people who get on YouTube, I don't think they understand that. For the long run, you might get a story or two, you know, somebody might say something, you might can fall along, but you know, like I said, when you're caught lying, right, just for views, it's only a matter of time before you get humbled, right? And so, like I said, as we see now, what's really the truth and what's really going on, Tisa tells us just everything that comes out about Diddy, it's just a little twist on it, if you will, right? And so we see now the numbers have just been taking a nosedive. You know what I mean? A nosedive. No more hype, sensationalism outside the courtroom, you know, telling these stories. You know, come in, sit down, shut the door. Like, no, nobody's shutting the door no more. Everybody is wanting to hear what's really going on, like I said, and it ain't really nothing going on. You know, like I said, she just did a story or a video, should I say, about Young Miami trying to write a character letter, you know, for Diddy, you know, like I said, once again, and it seems even that got scrutinized by Tisa Tells, because she's running out of ammunition and running out of insinuations and just write out lies to tell in regards to trying to keep people attached and watching and focused on what's going on. So Young Miami's a character letter. Let's get into that now. Look, check this out. So now let's look at what's real, right? And an actual filing to the judge, Young Miami, real name Carisha Brownlee, right, wrote a character reference for Sean P. Diddy Combs. She started by saying, she said that I cannot speak on or defend anything that may have happened before I met Sean Combs. But in the 4 years that she has known him, she says he's been supportive, genuine, and encouraging, right? She credited him for opening doors for her career, like taking her to the 2023 Met Gala and uplifting Black people in spaces we've historically been excluded from. She talked about his therapy, his role as a father, and how his kids need him, which I think, like I said, once again, is commendable. You know what I mean? Despite all that's happened, like I said, you know, she's standing by Diddy, and, you know, you can't hate that. It is what it is, right? Now, ladies and gentlemen, you can agree or disagree with Young Miami's position, right? But that's a real statement on the record, not gossip, not from somebody on YouTube trying to keep their lights on. You know what I mean? But that's a real statement by somebody who was dealing with Diddy for whatever their relationship is. It is what it is. And you know, she came out and she's trying to support him. Like I said, once again, Diddy's legal team, though, you know, they're basically trying to argue about the jail conditions. Like, you know, and you know, jail is not, you know, the Hamptons. Jail is not, you know, Turks and Caicos. Jail is not, you know, Beverly Hills. Jail is not, you know, none of those things, right? And so at the same time, Diddy's legal team is still fighting hard. They're basically saying that the sentencing guidelines shouldn't apply because the man's been living under inhumane conditions at the Metropolitan Detention Center, the Feds jail in New York, right? Like I said, we're talking about constant suicide watch. They're basically saying that Diddy's been under suicide watch, you know, from all intents and purposes, right? Bright lights, meaning 24/7, they basically watching him. No fresh air, for 13 months. I mean, I wouldn't say he didn't get no fresh air as he went back and forth to court. I think that's probably one of the things that Diddy probably looked forward to while he was going back and forth to court, because he would get out of the cell and, be able to see, his family members in an environment other than in prison, right? So like I said, he'd been locked up for 13 months, right? And like I said, expired food, you know what I mean? They talking about with maggots in them. They say Diddy suffering from knee injuries, basically that are untreated, no physical therapy, no clean water, no working wash machines and dryers, anything like that, extreme heat and cold. So now, what did he expect? What did he expect? Like I said, once again, what he was doing, wasn't illegal from that perspective. He didn't get convicted of that, so we can't say that. But like I said, I don't think that the judge and the I would say the DA in that case, they not forgetting that Cassie tape, man. The Cassie tape is the Cassie tape is something that we weren't supposed to see, if you will. But we seen a part of a person who he was behind closed doors that we weren't supposed to see. So much so that Diddy paid over a couple of $100,000, if you will, to try to hide that tape. I think that's the thing that, if it wasn't for that tape, I think the judge probably would have let him out already. But that tape speaks volumes as to who this guy really was, and behind closed doors, and despite having all of the success he had, all of the money that he had, he was basically, a common woman beater, if you will, because that's what it made him look like. Like I said, and best believe when they released that tape, it was done on purpose. It was done to do the very thing that it's doing right now, and that's make him suffer. And so, like I said, let's be clear. This ain't just hard time, right? It's human rights violations, if you will. That's what Diddy's attorneys are basically saying. And anybody who's ever been locked up knows the system don't care about your health, if you will. You know what I mean? Even if, I guess, you would be at Camp Cupcake in some kind of federal camp or whatever, right? But it's clear Diddy's team is trying to use those conditions to reduce his sentence. So they keep telling the judge, hey, look, no health care, he's got knee injuries, no physical therapy, no clean water, no working washers and dryers. Like I said, and so if this doesn't humble Diddy, I don't think nothing will. And this is not even, like I said, this is not a federal penitentiary. A federal penitentiary is totally different. Like I said, if Diddy's under suicide watch, then I would take it, he might be him and another cell buddy or something like that. But, as far as, him being in a penitentiary, like Leavenworth or, you know what I mean? What's the gladiator school? Terre Haute, Indiana, or somewhere like that. That's a different ball game. You know what I mean? People getting carried up out there on stretchers, weekly. You know what I mean? I'm talking about getting killed, stabbed, and all of these other things. You know what I mean? So, you can, if you don't know that, then you don't know that. And then so Diddy thinks and feels like, what, this is the worst. But there's situations that are worse. They call Terre Haute, Indiana, they call that the gladiator school, right? You know what I mean? They call it the gladiator school, and they call it the gladiator school for a reason, right? And so like I said, the judge, why the judge said no, you know what I mean? Judge Subramanian basically said no. Why? Because of the video of Diddy assaulting Cassie Ventura at the motel. Like I said, once again, ladies and gentlemen, it's hard to unsee that video, right? That evidence shows violence in his relationships. And the judge said point blank, there's no way to guarantee people's safety if Diddy is released. You understand what I'm saying? Like I said, once again, this is what I believe that has kept him in jail for so long. But October 3rd, right? October 3rd, we're going to see what actually happens, right? The bottom line is this. And that's why he could be looking at about up to 20 years. 10 years for each count if he was convicted of all the letters and all the excuses. Don't erase that video. The judge made that clear. Like I said, once again, I feel like, he wasn't, convicted of that video. That video was used in part to show a pattern of behavior. So me personally, I don't feel like the video should weigh in on that. Like I said, I think that Diddy should, ultimately get some help, go to rehab and like I said, some domestic violence classes or something like that. And if the judge really is trying to help him out, I think the judge should recommend something like that. And then once he complete that, then he can, gradually get back into society. But, it's up to the judge to see what he's going to do. Like I said, if the judge really cares like he said he cares, then that's what will happen, if you will. You know what I mean? Some kind of rehab, like I said, from all of the drugs and the things that say that they was using, you know what I mean? To get back out and to jump right back into what it is. A lot of times that's what people do, you know what I mean? Because like I say, once you get past them bars, it's back to, living the life, you know what I mean? And like I said, once again, from that perspective, it could be good or it could be bad or it could be great and it could be better. It all depends on the individual and what he learned from the situation that he just been in. You know what I mean? So like I said, the big picture, like I say, ladies and gentlemen, here's the big lesson, right? While people like Tissa tells are out here lying for clicks, the truth is sitting in black and white, ladies and gentlemen, in the courtroom. Like I said, all of the things that were said, a lot of it was just sensationalism, just to get you to click on the video so you can hear somebody rant about something that's really, truly, honestly not true a lot of the times, right? Young Miami, can write her letter. The lawyers can argue conditions, but the judge is looking at the facts, and the judge ultimately has the last word. You know what I mean? And the streets, the fans, the culture, we're looking at the facts too. You know what I mean? You can't, unsee the video. You know what I mean? Like I said, all of the other things are no longer based on the fact that Diddy wasn't convicted of those things. Like I say, he's convicted of two Mann Act charges, right? Which each carry up to 10 years each. So, like I said, he ain't been in trouble in prison. He ain't been breaking under the prison rules. Hopefully the judge finds it that, he feel like Diddy learned his lesson. If not, then, they're going to impose whatever sentence they impose. Like I said, me personally, I felt like it was bigger than just what this whole situation was about. But, what do I know? You know what I mean? That would be speculative of me to say that, right? And that's why people like Tisa tells, they're basically falling off. The views are crashing, right? Because the lies don't last, ladies and gentlemen. The truth always comes out. Like I said, so, y'all can tell me what y'all think in the comments and let me know what you feel about that situation involving, the Diddy situation. Like I said, we got a couple of more days and Diddy will be sentenced. And you can best believe that everybody's going to be watching, like I said. But that Cassie video, it still haunts him. Like I said, Young Miami, I believe she does care, like for all intents and purposes. And Tisa tells, basically her videos and her situation is crashing out right now. She really doesn't have anything to grab onto other than the latest headlines and twisting and turning that and acting like it's something that it really is not. So shout out to Fatima Barrett. Shout out to Alejandro. Who else is Douglas Wilson? Henry Cedillo. Was that Anthony Vincent? Money Mom Riley, Ma Dizzle. Who else that? Who's that? Ursula. Sticky Fingers. What's good? Shout out to everybody in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. And like I said, we're going to stay tuned. We got a couple of more days. And then on top of that, like I said, before you know it, we are 90. I don't know if everybody knows this. We are 99 days from New Year's Eve, y'all. We are 99 days from New Year's Eve. So this year went by so fast that it's crazy. So like I said, before you know it, we're going to be right around the corner. New Year's, January, February, the Keefe D trial starts involving the murder of Tupac Shakur. And I'll say this, in light of Diddy being sentenced on October 3rd. I believe Keefe D trial starts on February 3rd or 4th or 7th, one of the three, should I say. But more importantly than that, I think it would benefit Diddy to be home and not be in prison when that trial goes on, ladies and gentlemen. I think that it would be, Diddy can pray and possibly write the judge a letter letting the judge know that how sincere he is about changing his life, about getting it right. But I think it would benefit Diddy not to be in prison when the Keefe D trial goes on. Because like I said, once again, just the optics of things. Sometimes a lot of stuff doesn't really have to be true. But then sometimes some of it might be true. But just like I said, it all depends on how things go. And now that Keefe D situation, and he's going back to the initial reason as to what happened in regards to him alleging that Diddy put a hit on Tupac and Suge Knight, that wouldn't be a good look for Diddy at this particular time. Like I said, once again, as to the truth of that, I don't know. Like I said, the information that Keefe D gave up, it sounded plausible. But like I said, Sean P. Diddy Combs can only benefit to being home before that Keefe D trial start involving the murder of Tupac Shakur. If he's in jail, that's going to bring the sentiment of people feeling like, he should be in jail because X, Y, and Z, right? Though he may not have been convicted of the situation involving Tupac Shakur. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, people don't look at things like that all the time, even as you see in dealing with this situation involving the sex trafficking, the Cassie, Jane, and all of this other stuff that he was alleged to have done involving the feds, ladies and gentlemen. So like I said, once again, comment, tell me what you guys think. He said, Alejandro said, Delray, what's your favorite Tupac song? I would say, I don't have a favorite Tupac song, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't. I mean, you know what I mean? Like I said, I think Tupac's music, you can pick, different songs if you listen, because Tupac dropped so many gems and messages in the music, right? That it would be hard to say, I like this one song, because you can go back to, Tupacalypse Now, you know what I mean? And listen from the beginning and all of the stuff, When My Homies Call, all of that, you know what I mean? All of those songs. So like I said, I like Tupac's body of work, should I say, more so than I like one song. I like his body of work. Same thing with Biggie, you know what I mean? I like Biggie's body of work. Like I said, once again, you sit back and you listen, and hopefully you listening to some jewels they dropping, the wordplay, the slickness of what they saying, the cadence, the delivery, all of those things, and so like I said, but the Tupac, I like his body of work. You know what I mean? I think his body of work was impeccable, and I don't think it won't be duplicated. As many people like to come out and say, that this person is the next Tupac, or so on and so forth. I think, the body of work speaks for itself, as well as the films, you know what I mean, as well as the poems, as well as all of the other things, right? You heard the different interviews, the way he articulated himself, the way he represented himself, and a lot of the truth he spoke to power, if you will, right? So, but like I said, more importantly, appreciate you guys coming through. I just had to drop that on y'all, man. Like I said, your boy Delray, ladies and gentlemen, straight gang.
Blackjack. Life is like those cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother